I mentioned in the past when we actually reviewed the Rice Street lawsuit, we're going to call it, there was 2 lawsuits, basically. One, Shannon Stillwell and several others. That's the bigger lawsuit. And then we have this lawsuit we're going to review, which is the estate of Dayvion Blake, because Dayvion Blake, unfortunately, is no longer with us. And we're going to hear a little bit of the background of what happened to him and why his estate is filing this lawsuit against Rice Street or the Fulton County Jail system in the first place. So let's go ahead and get into it. We've got Destiny Monet Adams, duly appointed administrator of the estate of Dayvion Devonta Blake, deceased, and the mother and natural guardian of Mr. Blake, who is his son, who is a minor child of Dayvion Blake, excuse me. And who is this against? Fulton County Sheriff Patrick Labat, excuse me. Detention officer, detention officer, detention officer, detention officer, detention, DO. This is crazy. And we're going to find out why. We're going to find out why this is happening in the first place. Here's the complaint. Comes now. Destiny Monet Adams, the duly appointed administrator of the estate of Dayvion Blake, and files this complaint against defendants for violating the laws of the United States and the state of Georgia, thereby approximately causing the excruciating pre-death pain and suffering and wrongful death of Dayvion Blake. On August 31st, 2023, at the Fulton County Jail in Atlanta, Georgia. This is so sad, y'all. Parties and jurisdiction. Destiny Monet Adams is duly appointed administrator of Dayvion Blake. And of course, she's in the state of Georgia and subject to the jurisdiction of this court. This is against the defendant, Sheriff Patrick Labat. All right. It's a citizen of Georgia and resides within the Northern District of Georgia. We don't care about any of that information. At all times relevant to this action, defendant Patrick Labat was the duly elected sheriff of Fulton County of Georgia, and defendant Labat was responsible for the day-to-day operations of the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, including the Fulton County Jail. Defendant Labat was responsible for ensuring and maintaining the physical safety and welfare of the detainees at the Fulton County Jail. In his capacity as sheriff, defendant Labat had custody, control, and was in charge of the jail staff, and detainees/inmates populating the jail. What about all of these detention officers? We're going to get into it in a second. They were employed there. How many detention officers do we have? Let's go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 of these detention officers. This is sad, man. And we're going to get into why they're being named here and what happened in a second. We don't need to know all their background and all this information about them. Excuse me. Give me a second, y'all. I need a sip of water. All right, here we go. The plaintiff plans to uncover further details whose deliberate indifference played a role into the tragic death of Mr. Blake. This may include, among others, deputies or jailers accountable for the absence of supervision when Mr. Blake and the inmates who caused his death were left unattended. The defendants who were detention officers in the Fulton County Jail will be herein collectively referred to as detention officer defendants. At all times relevant herein, the defendants acted under color and authority of the state law for purposes of the federal constitution claims against them. Defendants above have waived any defense to qualified immunity by their actions described herein. Okay, what happened? Factual allegations. Fulton County Jail consists of 3-story low-rise structure joined to an elevator tower, providing access to 2 housing towers. We know this from when we've seen the tour of Rice Street and everything that was going down there, which is a whole nother story. The North Tower has 7 floors for housing, and the South Tower has 6. Each housing unit has 8 zones arranged in a horseshoe around an elevated control tower. The housing zones have between 16 to 18 cells split over 2 tiers. The cells open into a day room with tables bolted to the floor, phones, a kiosk for ordering commissary and submitting grievances, among other things, and a shower on each tier. Makeshift knives and shanks made by detainees are well known and well documented problems at the Fulton County Jail, resulting in violent attacks, severe injuries, and death. Fulton County Jail detainees are at constant risk of danger, serious personal injury, and death due to Fulton County Jail's crumbling infrastructure, which inmates use to craft makeshift knives called shanks for use as weapons. The Fulton County Sheriff's Office Jail Operations Standard Operating Procedures describe the system that will be used to conduct patrols and daily, weekly, and monthly inspections at the Fulton County Jail. The operations procedures for safety and facility inspections, effective date June 13th of 2023, is attached herewith as Exhibit A. The Fulton County Sheriff's Office Jail Operations Standard Operating Procedures, effective date June 13th, 2023, covers inspections to discover handmade knives and shanks, which is interesting. They put this in place once the Department of Justice was actually investigating what was going on in the jail. And that was mentioned by Patrick Labat in an interview that we reviewed before. According to the operations procedures for safety and facility inspections at Fulton County Jail, inspections are to be made daily and monthly, including holidays and weekends, of all areas occupied by inmates. We know this did not happen. I mean, we heard about the nut juice, right? It's wild out here. Shifts and housing supervisory staff will conduct a daily patrol, including holidays and weekends, of all areas occupied by inmates. Shift and housing supervisors will inspect all areas of facility occupied by inmates in their areas of jurisdiction, checking for security, safety, and sanitation. There's just no way this happened, ever. According to the operation procedures for safety and facility inspections at Fulton County Jail, sergeants will conduct daily safety and sanitation inspections utilizing the sergeant's daily safety inspection report form. Daily, they're supposed to do this. Rice Street, did this happen? The operation procedures for safety and facility inspections at Fulton County Jail goes to state. Listed below are safety checks and documenting procedures that are to be followed for housing inspections. Oh, Lord. Inspect locks to ensure the functionality and timeliness of repairs. Inspect doors leading to housing zones, sally ports, recreation zone, and door leasing to the outside. Y'all, we know this was the main problem, the main reason that Yak Gotti got attacked, the main reason that Shannon got attacked is because these doors are broken. And the Department of Justice said they would be able to rig the doors. The inmates were able to rig the doors, put things into the doors, so when they closed, they didn't close all the way and they could get out. And they were doing nothing. Rice Street in the chat says, I plead the fifth. Man, terrible. Defendant Labat has explained to the Fulton County Board of Commissioners and to the general public on multiple occasions, including the interviews we saw recently, why there is such a proliferation of homemade knives and shanks at the Fulton County Jail. Detainees are crafting shanks from the crumbling infrastructure. On or about April 20th of 2022, a sweep of the Fulton County Jail resulted in the discovery of nearly 100 knives and shanks. Jeez. According to the Fulton County Sheriff's Office, from January 2021 to December of 2022, deaths at Fulton County Jail quadrupled. Sheriff Labat is doing an amazing job, apparently. In a dramatic and well-publicized appearance before the Atlanta City Council on October 3rd of 2022, defendant Labat had a jail guard roll a wheelbarrow full of knives and shanks confiscated from the Fulton County Jail into the Atlanta City Council chambers. Less than 1 year later, in March of 2023, a search of only 1/3 of the housing zones in the jail uncovered more than 200 homemade knives and shanks. By the time of the mid-March 2023 search, there had been 78 stabbings at the jail in 2023, more than one per day. What? And the sheriff's general counsel, Amelia Joyner, told a panel of Georgia state legislators investigating the jail that overcrowding strains the physical limits of the aging jail and contributes to the violence. No, that's not it. The fact is, y'all didn't do anything to improve when you had the chance. Now you have another opportunity. They've been given $300 million to remedy this situation, and they're not doing it. That's the biggest issue. And now moving forward, there's really no excuses from that. And we heard Patrick Labat say this in a press conference recently where he said, well, the DA's office, they're using and indicting people and locking people up and just conducting things a certain way. So it's overcrowding the jails, and then we have trouble doing our job. So he's basically passing the buck to Fannie Willis's office, which is interesting as well. The jail's reputation as one of the most dangerous jails in the country has become so infamous that it prompted the United States Department of Justice to launch an investigation July 3rd of 2023 into both the Fulton County Jail and the Fulton County in general. And y'all see, they put this operating procedure in place a month before the Department of Justice got there. Do y'all think that's a coincidence? Fulton County Sheriff's Office Jail Operations Standard Operating Procedures went into effect June 13th of 2023. And when did the Department of Justice get there? July 13th, 2023. It's not a coincidence. Summarizing the reasons for the Department of Justice investigation, Attorney General Merrick B. Garland stated, "We launched this investigation into Fulton County Jail based on the serious allegations of unsanitary living conditions at the jail, excessive force and violence within the jail, discrimination against incarcerated individuals with mental health issues, and failure to provide adequate medical care to incarcerated individuals." Okay, we know all that stuff. We want to hear what happened with Dayvion Blake here. So we're going to skip down, and they're talking about the defendant Labat, how terrible he is, how he didn't do his job. The DOJ got involved, and they found what we were able to see in the Department of Justice report, which we only got through a small part of it. And even some of the stories that we heard from the Department of Justice is crazy. If y'all missed that video, go back and watch the review that we did on this channel of the Department of Justice, what they found when they investigated Rice Street specifically. It was pretty bad. All right, here we go. We're going down to Dayvion Blake. What is his story? At the time of his death, Dayvion Blake was a pre-trial detainee at Fulton County Jail. Innocent until proven guilty, right? Dayvion Blake was murdered in an attack by rival detainees in Fulton County on August 31st of 2023. It's terrible. The incident report memorializing the August 31st, 2023 attack and murder of Dayvion Blake is attached here with as Exhibit C. The fatal attack on Dayvion Blake occurred in Zone 400 on the 7th floor of the South Tower and is shown in Exhibit C, page 1 and 2. Prior to the fatal attack on Dayvion Blake, he had been involved in several incidents, which were complicated by his difficulty remembering events and responding to commands from detention officers. Prior to Dayvion Blake's murder, he was attacked by inmates using shanks on at least 3 separate occasions, was tasered by detention officers on at least 3 separate occasions, and was placed on suicide watch. On February 6th of 2023, Dayvion Blake was housed in zones 500 on the 4th floor of the South Tower. On February 6th of 2023, incident report is attached here within as Exhibit D. On February 6th, 2023, a detainee in zone 500 on the 4th floor of the South Tower got in a fight with Dayvion Blake, which culminated into a detainee stabbing Dayvion Blake in the back multiple times with a shank. Oh my. What? No, that's a different case. That's not Dayvion Blake. This is a totally different case. After the February 6, 2023 fight, both Dayvion Blake and the detainee wielding a shank were seen and medically cleared to return to the 4th floor of the South Tower. Detention Sergeant J. Tidwell investigated the February 6, 2023 fight and recommended Dayvion Blake and the other detainee be moved to lockdown. Detention Lieutenant Melissa Wells reviewed and approved the Detention Sergeant J. Tidwell's recommendation. On February 10, 2023 at 11 a.m., Detention Officer L. Rollins was assigned as the floor assigned as the floor. Oh, okay. I guess that's what they call him, on the 4th floor or the North Tower. Detention Officer L. Rawlings report states that due to not having a tower officer at approximately 11:29 a.m., I conducted security rounds from the Horseshoe. On February 10, 2023, 11:29 a.m., incident report is attached herewith as Exhibit E. On February 10th, detainee Dontarius Whitaker complained to Detention Officer Rawlings that he had been threatened and extorted by 5 detainees, including Dayvion Blake. Interesting. Detention Officer Rawlings recommended detainee Dontarius Whitaker be relocated per classification department for his safety. Lieutenant Wells reviewed Rawlings' report and approved the recommendations. On February 10th at 4:25, Dayvion Blake was involved in a large fight in Zone 200 on the 4th floor of the North Tower. Man, they were going crazy in here. On February 10th, the incident report is attached there. Okay. Deputy Sheriff Sergeant R. Williams investigated the February 10th, 2023 incident and determined that Dayvion Blake had instigated the fight, was acting erratically, and based on her training with the crisis intervention team, which allows her to identify those with diminished mental capacity, Dayvion Blake should be housed in the mental health unit on the 3rd floor of the North Tower. And this is where you want to stay away from. We heard this in Shannon's lawsuit. We heard it from reports from the Department of Justice. Once you get into the mental health unit, it's just scary from what they say. Melissa Wells reviewed the investigation and approved Sheriff Williams' recommendation, and they got him moved. On March 1st, Dayvion Blake was in the Zone 300 on the 5th floor of the South Tower. We got an incident report for that. And Detention Officer Sweeney was assigned to the 5th floor on the South Tower as the floor officer for the 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. shift. At approximately 7:38, right after he got there on March 1st, LaShawn Sweeney observed Dayvion Blake standing in the Zone 300 red zone, a box outlined on the floor in front of the zone door on the 5th floor of the South Tower with all his belongings, stating that he can't be in the zone and he feared for his life. She interviewed Dayvion Blake, who stated, "I don't owe any commissary to anyone. And for the safety of himself and others, he would like to be moved because he felt he might harm someone." Detention Officer Sweeney contacted mental health on behalf of Dayvion Blake. On April 29th, at or about 7:50 p.m., Dayvion Blake was stabbed while in Zone 300 on the 5th floor of the North Tower. So this was how many days? So this was literally 2 days before. Or I'm sorry, not 2 days before. I'm going backwards. So this would have been 60 days, almost 60 days after that. And the incident report is attached. Shannon Roberson reviewed the security camera footage of the incident and saw several inmates walking in and out of cell number 306. Dayvion Blake then exits cell 306, walks around in Zone 300, and argues with several unidentified, possibly 2 inmates in that zone. No one could identify the other inmates involved in the April 30th, 2023 attack in Zone 300. What? Why? What? Because the video quality was too poor and blurry to adequately identify them. Man. Rice Street says, where is all this information coming from? Somebody snitching, shaking my head. What happens in Rice Street is supposed to stay in Rice Street, man. It's in the incident report. It says right here. They filed an incident report. So it's all available. Dayvion Blake was taken to the medical, and Sergeant Shannon Roberson recommended Dayvion Blake be relocated for his safety. Jeez. On May 1st, shortly after that, 2 days after that, Dayvion Blake was in zone 300 on the first floor of the North Tower. This man was going through hell. At 2:53 p.m., Officer Modu Janeth observed Mr. Blake had gathered his belongings, and upon interviewing Dayvion Blake, Mr. Blake stated he would like to be moved because he felt he may harm someone. Mental health was conducted on behalf of Dayvion Blake. They have the exhibit here. Supervisor Deputy Sheriff Gadsden reviewed the detention officer Janeth's incident report and recommended Mr. Blake be moved for his safety. On May 1st, at 8:49 p.m., Dayvion Blake was involved in another incident in zone 200 on the second floor. On May 1st, the incident reports attached. Officer Watley, Officer Hester, and Officer Johnson responded to detainee Russian banging on the walls of cell 204, calling for help. Detainee Russian was alarmed about Dayvion Blake's unreported placement in the new cell and complained Dayvion Blake was antagonizing him. Oh, God. During the subsequent questioning, Officer Hester told Dayvion Blake to go back into cell 204, but Dayvion Blake attempted to walk out of zone 200. Officer Hester and Officer Johnson ordered Dayvion Blake to return to cell 204, but he did not comply and was tased by Officer Johnson. Nasty work. Officer Obasi asked Dayvion Blake why he did not comply with Officer Hester's instructions to go into cell 204 and return to zone 200. Mr. Blake said he could not remember. Oh my God. This is insane. Officer Obasi recommended Blake be moved to lockdown for 42 days in accordance with the Fulton County Sheriff's Handbook. He also recommended Dayvion Blake and detainee Russian be separated from the same zone. June 17th, Blake was in zone 300 on the sixth floor of the South Tower. So this would obviously be after he got out of lockdown. Dang. Incident report is attached. June 17th, Dayvion Blake asked detention officer Gibbs if he could act as an orderly by helping distribute food trays and detainees as a part of feeding service. Officer Gibbs said, hell nah. He said, what? You just got out of lockdown, man. Chill out. And Dayvion Blake attempted to grab a tray. Officer Gibbs then tased Dayvion Blake. Oh, man. Dayvion Blake was taken to medical, where NAFCARE staff approved Dayvion Blake's return to the sixth floor. They say, you good, buddy? Try not to do that next time. During subsequent investigation, Sergeant Johnson learned that most of the inmates in zone 300 became angry with Dayvion Blake for his behavior, and that Dayvion Blake was acting odd, and recommended that Dayvion Blake should have mental health referral. All right. July 2nd. Here we go. He was in zone 200. Incident report. July 2nd at 8:30 a.m. Dayvion Blake showed on July 2nd, Dayvion Blake showed his stuff and handled his business in front of Officer Nakia Paul and Officer Johnson. They ordered Dayvion Blake to stop, and when he did not, they entered zone 200, removed Mr. Blake, handcuffed him, and took him to zone 700. Sergeant Brian Price investigated the incident. determined that the behavior would not be tolerated, recommended 14 days placement in lockdown pending disciplinary hearing, and submitted the report to jail management. Dayvion Blake was again witnessed handling his business later that day by detention officer Hobbs on the 4th floor of the South Tower. Officer Hobbs pepper sprayed Dayvion Blake, escorted him to medical, then notified the watch commander for further investigation. Yo, this is rough. Good Lord. On July 5th, Dayvion Blake, while in zone 100 on the 7th floor of the North Tower, was attacked by inmates. I mean, this man was going through it. Oh man. July 21st, July 28th, July 29th, August 3rd, he was placed on suicide watch. He was taken to medical. August 4th, he behaved in a threatening manner toward the medical staff. August 5th, they transferred him. August 6th, he was unable to talk to the medical staff. August 8th, this is what led up to everything happening. On August 8th of 2023, Dayvion Blake was released into general population again. On August 9th, John Smith, MD, a psychiatrist employed at NAFCare, discharged Dayvion Blake from treatment. Dayvion Blake continued taking some medication for schizophrenia, but refused or no-show for scheduled medication dispersal on the evening of August 28th, 2023 and the morning of August 31st, 2023. Dayvion Blake was killed in an attack at 2:21 p.m. on August 31st. The attack occurred in zone 400 on the 7th floor of the South Tower, Exhibit C throughout. On August 3rd, 2023, at the time of the attack that caused Dayvion Blake's death, detention officer Isaac was assigned to the tower office on the 7th floor. On August 31st, Officer Cooper was assigned to the 7th South as the floor officer. At the time of the attack, Dayvion Blake, floor officer Terrence Cooper, was feeding in zone 200 on the 7th floor. At 2:21 p.m., Officer Isaac heard a loud banging on the zone 400 door and an unidentified inmate screaming for help. Officer Isaac saw blood on the zone 400 floor and an inmate lying on the floor in a pool of blood. Officer Isaac radioed for help to floor officer Cooper. Isaac then escorted orderlies in zone 200 and opened the 903 door and waited for further instructions. Officer Cooper went to zone 400 and saw Dayvion Blake lying on the floor covered in blood. Floor officer Terrence Cooper then radioed for help. Officer Price, who was assigned supervisor on the 7th floor, and to watch commander Derek Page. Officer Price's incident report states that he was notified by floor officer Cooper to investigate the incident. Watch commander Page incident report states he overheard the floor officer Cooper come over the radio stating that he needed a stretcher due to a stabbing. At approximately 2:29, multiple officers arrived at the 903 door. Dayvion Blake was taken to Grady Hospital and pronounced dead. So this is what's leading to this entire lawsuit. The story leading up to this is crazy. I mean, this could be its own limited series, this whole entire story. So this is going to go down. I haven't heard any updates on this so far as to a response from the defendants, really, because you've got so many of them. But I'm sure Labat is going to speak out on this sooner or later. We're going to keep you guys updated on what's going on with this lawsuit, as well as the lawsuit filed by Shannon Jackson, aka Shannon Stillwell. Let me know what y'all think. Do they really have a case here? And you think this is something that the Fulton County is going to be held accountable for? Is this just another one that they're going to sweep under the rug? We'll have to wait and see.